Well, Ken is working diligently over here trying to capture the last minute numbers coming in. It is 3 o'clock. Michelle is not with us, and so one of my responsibilities as first vice chair is to try to corral these cats in here. So let's see what we can do today. I don't even have my agenda in front of me. There we go. Okay. Call to order. We do have a quorum. I'm pleased to say. I also want to thank everybody who participated in the submission of information for the weighting. I think we'll find that that's going to be fairly straightforward today, but we'll see. Ken is in there putting in numbers that may or may not match what we said. Yeah, it's on. I've got my light and everything. Is this better? Can you hear me now?
We just needed to talk more to it. You are a new member, are you not? If you would take a seat at the table. The board has not formally appointed you yet until our April 11th board meeting, so we'll make sure that we introduce you and tell you everything to do. But yeah, sit with the group. You don't have to hide.
No.
I'm not letting you.
But we will. We do have a quorum, so we will go around and introduce ourselves. And I'm Jim Moore, at-large member.
Sharon Brown, City of Fountain.
Jen Ellinger, El Paso County.
Jim O'Donnell, Photo.
Aubrey Day at large. Kim Munchler at large. Julia, League of Women Voters.
Kevin Walker at large.
Courtney Stone at large.
Laura Nelson, El Paso County.
John DeVoe, City of Woodland Park. I'm Steve Hart, pending member, Management.
I'm Jessica McMullen, your non-voting policy and communications manager.
And I'm sorry, Steve, and you said you're representing whom?
Manitou.
Manitou. Excellent. Glad to have you. Okay, and let's see. Oh, and Ken, we'll know Ken. This is Ken's show today, I think, all the way through.
Just about.
Okay, consent items. Anybody have anything that they want to change? Oh, Tom, we haven't heard from you. You want to introduce yourself quickly?
Hi, I'm Tom Fifely, City of Colorado Springs.
Great to have you here. Consent agenda. We have the agenda, the minutes from our last meeting, and the report from the board. And I will tell you that I've asked a question about what happened that we weren't getting the finance update, which I'm told that Jessica is going to be making sure that we get that at future issues.
Remember that was previously attached to the board report that Jim had been preparing for us, so you could see the financials as the board was seeing them. So you will have that back in. It just, in the craziness of the last month or three, it's been falling off.
Well, and it was also listed on the consent agenda, if you go back and look at those. Okay, so does anyone have anything that they want to remove from the agenda or that they would like to see added? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent.
So moved.
Motion. Do you have a second? Do I have a second? So far, okay, I do have. Okay, so we have a motion from Sharon and a second from Tim. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Public comments? Hearing none, and I don't know if anybody wants to throw something else up in the air. We'll just continue going. Action items. The 2019-2022 TIP. Our speaker will be Ken Prather, the Acting Transportation Director.
Thank you.
Do you even want to talk about it right now?
Back in for the record, Ken Prather, PPACG Acting Transportation Director. The Board of Directors released the draft 2019 to 2022 TIP for public comment back in February. It's now going to come back to them in April for their final action. This is your opportunity to review the comments that have been received and the responses that staff has proposed for those comments, and to make a recommendation to the board for action. We're hoping that it is for approval.
Did everybody have a chance to, well, I know you had a chance. Did everybody take time to take a look at the details? Ken, one thing, just to clarify something for me, because it didn't jump out at me, and once I got to the small print, it got to be kind of challenging. But my recollection is that we specifically had the I-25 gap added to this in a vote 2 months ago?
Right, 2 months ago, or a month ago, you made a recommendation to the board for the I-25 gap project to be amended into the current tip, and the board did approve that. It is included in here as part of the proposed draft tip. So, it will continue. It's now in the current tip. It's proposed as this draft tip that it continue to be in the new approved tip. The changes were tried to highlight the changes in your packet, so you didn't have to read everything again. Everything that wasn't highlighted was what you saw 2 months ago when you recommended release to the public. We had an error in our spreadsheet of projects that didn't subtract enough money, so the city of Fountain proposed a regional trail project along Fountain Creek through Fountain, and we had it starting in 2019. It's a 3-year project, but there wasn't enough funds in 2019, so it'll start in 2020, finish up a year later. But they still get the same amount of dollars. It's just a 1-year delay because we didn't have the money in 2019.
Could you explain why so many projects on here do not have any funding showing?
Okay, this is related to CDOT's ransomware attack on its servers. I don't know if you've heard that, but they got attacked twice. Transportation, I don't know if it's just, I guess it's just CDOT, not other state computers, but they had a couple thousand computers that had ransomware. They started to remove the ransomware and install backups and things like that. And I think within a week or so, they got attacked again and lost everything. So they are a little behind. But the reason that the projects in there that you see have no funds is that the projects are in 2018. Not all of the projects have been finished in 2018. A lot of them have money that needs to be carried over from 2018 into 2019. But because CDOT's computers have been down, they haven't been able to process which projects are closed, which projects will have to have rollover to be shown in 2019. And so we left them in here. There's some hidden columns in the spreadsheet that you don't see in your printout that as soon as we know which ones are actually not going to have any money carried over and are finished and closed, we will delete those rows and the zeros will disappear. The others will show up as having some dollars carried over from last year into 2019 in the rollover column. So it does look funny, weird, incorrect, but there's a reason for it.
I just kept going down there and I kept thinking, oh, this is going to be really an interesting budget when you get done with it.
Yeah.
That's okay. All right, any questions for Ken or comments, Tim?
Ken, when it says the sponsors Colorado Springs, is that PPRTA money?
No, these, well, it could be. It's a Colorado Springs project. Now, we do show PPRTA projects in here, but then over in the right-hand column, it would show local funding only. There'd be no federal funds shown. So if you've got a particular project you're talking about or interested in, it would show some federal dollars or state dollars or local dollars. And if it's a Colorado Springs project only, PPRTA project, then there'll be no federal dollars associated with it.
Jen?
Oh, it's just, this is a draft, right, Ken?
This will be the final project list that the board
All
will.
these projects are going done in that 5-year span,
Yes.
and they're all funded.
Yes, these are all funded. We have the money for them. Well, some of them will start the last year, the fourth year of the TIP. Now, they may wind up being a 2-year project, but they've got the funding, and they'll start in 2022. Depending on how long it is and when they get their bids and start, maybe they would finish up in 2023.
Yeah, I understand.
But,
that was
yeah,
what
so,
we discussed.
yes, it is fiscally constrained. The only part that we didn't meet fiscal constraint was the one comment for the one project. So that we had to delay the project 1 year. And it's still fully funded, still got all the money that it requested, just got a 1-year delay. We did get a comment from FHWA that was identified in the public comment spreadsheet that was attached. They are looking for some additional wording that I'm still getting final clarification from them and CDOT, that we have an appendix that lists funding sources, and we have the funding table that says, here's all the money and that each project is getting. What they would like is a summary table in the body of the document with a positive statement saying that the TIP is fiscally constrained, rather than having to imply that from trying on your own to add up all of those projects and see what it is. So they're looking for a table like this out of the 2040 plan. And this is the years, this is how much money that we're getting each of those years or could get. And so we've got to insert this table and a summary statement into the body of it to say that it is fiscally constrained. These are the dollars available in each of the years. And you can see from the TIP table how much we're spending each year, and it is fiscally constrained. So they're looking for that kind of a positive, clear statement in the text, and we're still working on that. And
I've not really followed, but when we approve TIPs, and they have a budget note to it, which of course most of them do, there is a running sheet somewhere then that shows how we're doing against budget, or?
That's in our spreadsheet that we maintain, and it's in the TIP document. It's not highlighted well. If I can find it.
Just for my own edification.
I can't see my cursor. If you look in the you can't see it here, but at the beginning of these funding categories, I think that says CMAQ. Before you get any projects listed, there's some rows in here that show how much money was programmed.
Right.
And then what it does is it adds up all of the costs in the projects below here, this line, and then subtracts it, and then gives a running balance available right here.
You realize there's no way I can see that.
Well, I know, but this would be what's this is in your document, and we're working on somehow trying to get this even bigger. This is landscape, but it's still too small to read, and but that is something that each time a project is amended in, or CDOT picks a project, they either have to bring their own money with the project, or we have, if it's something that we're selecting out of our pool, then we have to reduce the size of that pool based on the cost of the project. So we cannot go negative in any funding category.
I may email you a couple of questions.
Sure.
That's fine. Thank you.
But yes, we do need a lot of improvement on presentation here.
Any other questions or comments for Ken? We are being asked to recommend to the board that they approve the project, the TIP program and the projects listed on there. I'm presuming because of the conversation we had a few minutes ago that the funding is not part of our recommendation.
Well, it is. The funding is all there.
We don't have all the exact funding because of what we were just talking about with the CDOT thing.
Well, that's just a presentation.
No, we do know there's funding.
Mhm.
But we don't know the dollars aligned with each of the projects because of the situation that we were talking about a few minutes ago. So
Yeah.
I think we're okay approving the TIP, or recommending to approve the TIP.
I can certainly send you the final paragraph and pages with that table in it.
Summary table?
Mhm.
I think that would be very helpful
you
to
know,
at least see that.
Because we have to have this developed by this Friday to go to the board
Okay.
as a draft, so you will get it very soon. But it was that table that I showed you, which is
Right.
the money that was programmed from 2040, and CDOT has not updated that since then.
Okay. I guess I understand.
I understand what you're saying, because it's like approving something without knowing, I mean, you don't see everything you're approving.
Mhm.
Which is a little shaky.
It's not quite as long as the budget bill. Okay.
You are correct in what you're saying, and all I can say is you saw this, for those of you who were here, when the 2040 plan was approved. If you remember, it was much bigger because it covered a 20-year time period from 2016 out to 2040, and I have just clipped it for the 4 years that will be in the TIP.
Ken, is there a possibility that we can note, I mean, I don't see any reason to not approve it. It's kind of, that there's a bit of concern about not seeing the budget numbers associated with this. I believe exactly what you say about the projects. It's just odd to approve something that's budgetary. Seeing the numbers.
Mhm.
Not that it would make a huge difference.
Well, you could approve it with those numbers right there.
If I had X-ray vision, I could see it.
Oh.
I think, Jen, to your point, and I'll ask you to think about how we frame the motion, but I think if we were recommending that the board approve, but note that, not that our approval is conditional, but that the document we reviewed was not complete in that it didn't have all of the financial figures represented in what we were looking at. But exactly that. Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
We want to repeat that one more time, make sure we got that language.
Go for it.
We'll just watch the video a few times.
Yeah, we'll watch the video. No, I think basically we want, I don't know why I'm framing the motion. I'm supposed to be presiding. But I think the motion that we want to consider is to forward the proposed FY 2019-2022 TIP to the board for their approval, and note that our recommendation was based upon a document that did not have full financial information. And is that a second, or do you have a question, John? All right.
Do we somewhere have what those numbers were? They just got lost?
It's these numbers here.
So we're going to
That-
approve the numbers as shown.
These numbers were already approved.
Well,
When we
these,
look-
not for the tip. They were approved for the 2040 plan a couple of years ago. These are the numbers that I will put into the tip based on FHWA's request for the positive statement that these are the numbers being used and that the sum, the total of the revenues and the sum of the total cost of the projects, that the tip is fiscally constrained.
Okay, now,
Just can reference some numbers rather than saying we're going to approve this, so we really don't know what they are. I don't like that so much.
okay. Let me, if I might, as a matter of procedure, we do have a motion. We need a second. If we don't get a second, then it will fail. Okay, Julie is seconding it. Now, Kevin, we are debating the motion or discussing the motion.
Are the numbers that are on the last page, the grand totals, are they correct?
Yes, that's the sum of what's in the,
Sort of?
yes, sir.
So, so even though they're not, some of these 19 numbers are not in there, some of them are a bunch of zeros, the totals are correct.
Well, what this adds up is the numbers by year. If the right here, which you can't see, is a rollover column. Any dollars that are brought over, carried over from 2018,
They're not in the 2019.
huh?
They're not in the 2019.
They're not added to the 2019. They're kept separate.
So the 2019, 20, 21, 22 numbers
Are correct. Yes, sir.
The carried over 2018 numbers are not.
They're not reflected in here. They will be amended in when CDOT identifies the numbers. And they will not be added to 2019. They will be in a separate
Okay.
column.
I'm not that uncomfortable about, we're only missing one of that one 2018 rollover.
I'm not that uncomfortable. What I'm concerned about is that you're approving a document
They didn't complete.
on the light side.
We don't, well, the question to me is, do we have any issues with the projects, number one? And then we're going to see these numbers. My concern at this point is, to your question, which you're talking about the very last page.
Yeah.
And the very last page is showing that the total funding, grand total funding for 2019 is $55,021,000 and change. And that's from all sources. This is showing $208,758,000. So we're off by roughly a factor of 1/5.
Well, this is your revenue, and the other one is the expenses. So if we had projects in all of these funding categories, and most of them are CDOT projects and CDOT funds, then we could spend another $150 million if CDOT had the money and brought the projects forward, is what this is saying. So if our total is only 55,
Now, I'm trying to help you here. Are these numbers simply the sum of the columns above them in this document?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Column missing.
So as long as those columns are not greater than these columns here in the revenue, then we are fiscally constrained.
Kevin?
Okay, I just wonder if we could amend the motion to say, approve, but to ask the executive committee to review the 2018 rollover numbers when they get ransomed, or whenever we pay the ransom, or whenever we finally get the money. And just review that, and if the executive committee is comfortable with moving it forward, then I think we don't have to have the entire board.
The rollover dollars, whenever they're approved, will come forward as an amendment.
So they're not coming forward on Friday?
They won't come forward on Friday. At this point, we have no idea when they will come forward.
Okay.
Well, I think-
I strike that.
Okay, I think, yeah, I think the discussion.
Right.
I think the discussion, I'm hearing two trains in this. One is what you're talking about, which is the money from 18. Where does that go? And how is it reflected? But then we also have the holes in this document, which is what Jen and I are struggling with, as to what really are we recommending to the board. And my sense is that we've got an artificial barrier in here that the board is going to have the numbers as they're already really kind of, they're assigned somewhere. You just need to get them.
These are the numbers right here, and I just need to get this table inserted into the documents.
But that doesn't show against which projects,
No, that's your tip document.
which doesn't show.
Or
We're in a circle here, Ken.
Okay, this is the revenue,
Yes, I understand.
and this will be inserted as a page and a half
Right.
into the document in your hand, and it's not assigned against individual projects. That's done in this table,
Right.
the spreadsheet table, where each project, if you didn't have each project like this, shows here's the project and here's the money it's getting in each, or it's going to cost in each year, and that we are programming money for this project in those years.
Right.
So that's the sum, either by year or by project, that you can come up with the total cost. So at the very end, that Kevin was pointing out, here is the total cost for that year, 2019, is $55 million.
Right. As represented in what we were.
In what you have in front of you already.
Right.
And that won't change
There's,
until the next tip amendment.
So there's a bunch of projects that have $0 associated with them. Why are they in this document?
Because they have money in 2018 that when CDOT determines if those projects are closed or not, there will be an amendment to identify money rolled over.
So if I went through each column of the 2019 numbers, they would add up to 55 million?
Correct. The rollover is not identified here. When it is identified and comes forward, it will be a tip amendment that comes through you, and it will not be added to 2019. It will be in its own separate column of carryover funds.
Jen?
Are those carryover funds used for cost overruns?
Those are funds that were programmed for a project in 2018 that were not spent.
I got that. Since you don't put it forward in 2019, are those funds used for projects that have cost overruns?
No, ma'am.
Or are they spread out, or are they just?
They are guaranteed for that project that they've already been promised. If we had a project a sidewalk project that had $500,000 programmed to it in 2018, and they only spent $400,000 and didn't finish the project.
Oh, and didn't
finish the project. Then that rollover of $100,000 would be identified in a new column in here, would not be added to 2019. It would be added to the rollover column. And if the project is closed out and there are funds left over,
Right.
that is the money then that becomes available for cost overruns or other projects. Kind of gets put back in the pool, available to everybody.
Okay, let me ask a question in a different way. As we look at this, are there projects listed in this tip that do not have funding?
No, those are all completely funded.
Okay. So that means if we see zeros in there, it's all subject to what you just said, which is the CDOT 18 money that would be rolled over, but we don't know what that is because of the hack.
Right. We could eliminate all of those rows of zeros in there, and it would look exactly like it does now.
Okay.
And then when CDOT rolls it over, we'd have to type them all back in.
I feel better.
So that was why we were being lazy, and well, we thought we would have the rollover before now.
Okay.
the original schedule was that we would.
Okay, John, does that help you at all?
You said you had to have these done by next Friday.
Uh,
Recommendation.
My memo to the board has to be done by Friday.
When you do that to the board, will the board have all those numbers added at that time, so the board's dealing with numbers and not blank spaces?
No.
So the board is going to approve it, waiting on the state to get their ransom paid or whatever they're doing.
Correct. What the board will see in the document will be this table that you're just now seeing for the first time. But this will be in a page in the body of the document, identifying these are our revenues, and with the cost shown in the tip table, we are fiscally constrained.
That's what you're going to recommend.
Yes, that will be to the board, yes.
That's what we should.
So this will be added to the body of the tip as a new paragraph under financial plan. But there will be no change to this table here. That
Is there a chance these projects will get held up because CDOT doesn't get that fixed?
yes, the money has to be in the current fiscal year for bookkeeping purposes. So if the money is not rolled over, it can't be spent.
Please come back and tell us that if that happens.
Right. So they are working on it as fast as they can because this is a statewide issue.
Kevin?
I have a question that's a little different. How, and I think we asked this before, how is it that we're spending $55 million in 2019, $45 million in 2020, and then we drop to 18 and 17 in the 2 out years? I know we have the $25 million with the infra grant and the other, and the local match.
Part of it is CMAQ funds. We have CMAQ funds in 2019, and I think there's $1 million in 2020. And after that, they disappear because we will no longer be eligible for them.
So we have programmed in this thing $50 million in 2019 that is not programmed in any other year. And that's the I-25 north to El Paso County line. That would be the state's $25 million and our $25 million.
Yeah, so if you took out $55 million out of here, or $50 million,
We're only programming $5 million for 2019. So then where's the big number coming from in 2020, which I have not located it yet. Are you following me?
yep. $30, $50. Looks like something's not adding up right, because that's $30 million there. $24 million and $26 million should be higher than 55. This is a reflection, if the formulas are correct in here, that this is a reflection of the money available, because at this point, we've got a few $100,000 out in 2022 that are not programmed on a project. They're still in a pool. But for the rest of it, we have programmed all the money that's available. So it's...
But if you look at if you look at the I-25 one, the state number is $25 million, and the total is $24 million. So I don't know how that's one that I just saw.
Okay.
It looks like it's ignoring local altogether. Because if you look at federal and state, that's what your total in bold is down on 55 million. It's taking the top two, but ignoring local.
Okay. So that is an error then in the formula here, because it should be, the total should be all three, federal, state, and local.
So it'd be
Certainly.
$5 million plus more.
So certainly we'll review all of those.
Yeah.
It'll be the last one. So it'll be like
So we're only putting another.
Yes,
$1 million.
before Friday.
Jen?
I'm astonished.
I think I am fine with approving the projects that we have been assured are fiscally constrained, but I would not approve
Oh, here, look, I've got it. 100 million, 170.
So, all right, no, wait, then how, do we amend the motion, or do I withdraw it? Or if Tim,
Look here. They just put the damn commas in there.
have you got something written down there that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, it's more questions for him.
Okay.
I want to see a balance or how to balance.
Well, and we want to get to
I'm
waiting.
looking at this going, so, I guess I'd like to move that we recommend that.
Now, hold on. Before you do that, Tim, will you withdraw your second to my motion?
Yes.
Okay, and I withdraw the motion. Now we have a clean slate.
Julie's second.
I'm
I
sorry?
should just vote it down and start over. It's probably the cleanest way.
Is that the cleanest way?
It's a suggestion.
All right, well, okay, so I moved and you seconded, and so let's bring closure to that. All those in favor of the motion as I remember it, good luck. Signify by saying aye. Don't all rush forward. And those opposed signify by saying nay. Nay. Very good. Okay, so that's defeated. Now,
Sometimes you just got to start over.
thank you, Laura. Now, Jen.
Given the lack of complete information, I'm going to leave the inaccurate part out of it.
Yeah.
Given the lack of complete information, I'd like to approve the TIP and the projects within it, but not of the specific budget. I can't.
I understand.
I don't know how, if anybody has better words, I want to approve the projects. We're not going to go backwards. And they will hang this whole thing.
We could approve the projects under the understanding that they were all fiscally constrained
Right.
under the original budget, which is up there. Which too. But yeah, something doesn't add up there.
I think what we need to do is
Okay.
at least express to the board that it's hard to approve the budgetary numbers in this when we're missing some stuff.
Do you have any thoughts?
What do you feel?
You're a politician. Come on, help me. Okay, so, all right, let me see if I can turn it into a motion.
I'd like to move to approve the projects detailed in the 2019-22 TIP. With the caveat that we are missing complete budgetary information.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Okay,
That's pretty good. I'm going to speak up here, so what we need to be approving is not the project list, but the entire TIP. So that's, and what we're saying is still accurate. We approved the TIP, but we want to bring awareness, but you've just specified projects, and so that can't be in the motion. Because if you specify projects only, we're not approving the TIP, and the board approving it doesn't do us any good.
Would you be comfortable phrasing it such that you recommend approval of the TIP with a adequate review and confirmation
Budgetary numbers.
of the fiscal constraint as reflected by, fiscal constraint, period, which would, because it'll have to be with these numbers compared to the expenses in the other table to show that nothing in here goes below zero.
Can you make it contingent on the fact that the board is going to see these budget numbers that match the TIF?
They're the ones going out on the limb. Yeah, if they don't see them.
Yeah, their one's on the limb. It's their decision. But
It's not
I,
that I don't want to see the projects move forward, it's just that I'm doing it with lack of information.
okay, may I suggest language along the lines then of the following, that we recommend that the board approve the TIP with updated fiscal restraint and financial information.
Make that.
be careful. It just encourages me. Okay, we have a so moved. Do I have a second? John is seconding it. Julie's seconding it, so we have 2 seconds. All right, we're a little behind on schedule, so all those in favor of the motion as seconded signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Same sign.
Aye.
Thank you. 1 opposition, Kevin. So that is passed, and we thank you for your patience. And as we try to
Thank you.
sort this out. All right. Weighting of the plan criteria, and somebody allocated a full hour for this.
Well, I hope.
I think we're going to need that.
I understand that in a previous cycle, there was several hours spent on this. I wasn't involved in that, so I'm not sure why, but what I have here are the input that I have received so far on your, let me back up. The board approved 12 criteria to use to evaluate the plans. You were involved in the development of those criteria. Now that they've been approved, CAC has the role, and it's only CAC this time around. There's no staff weighting, there's no TAC weighting, and it's strictly a CAC weighting that will represent the public's priorities for these criteria. What's more important, what's most important, what's least important. And so that's what I sent out the spreadsheet to you, asking for your priorities, your values, expressed in 2 ways. One was a ranking of 12 to 1, 12 being the most important criteria, 1 being the least important. The other was a weighting. If you've got 100 points, assigning something to each criteria. It could be half a point, 1 point, could be up to 90 points on one criteria, however you wanted to assign the weights. And it's just two methods of determining or expressing your priorities. Now, if I have all of the input from everybody and nobody has any desire to change those numbers, then we're finished. But you have an option.
Sorry, now I'm just being punchy. I can only behave so long. I apologize.
We need to see what our aggregate impact is.
Okay, well, I didn't want the results to influence anybody's,
Go for it.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
That's exactly what causes all the problems.
Otherwise, we can arm wrestle with each other.
Well, there's the results. Can you all read that?
How bad was I? That's all I want to know.
We're not betting on the horses here.
Is this a test for class?
So what this number, oh, thank you. That helps. What this number is the sum of all of the weights, the up to 100 points. This was the sum of the ranks, 12 through 1. This then calculates a percentage for each one of these, and then this is the combined. It's an average of these two. So that's built-in formulas that do all of that. So this is the average of the 2 methodologies of all of the members combined. That would be the CAC's recommendations if nobody makes any changes to their input.
I think there's one little problem. On safety, it is ranked at 13 on the calculation, and since there are only 12 categories, it's a little hard for me to
That's the combined.
understand that.
Under rank,
There's a math issue in there somewhere.
Oh, we're used to that.
I'm looking at ranks. I'm not looking at weights right now.
Oh, ranks.
oh, rank.
This
All right, you're cheated.
This is the sum, or this is a percentage
That's a percentage?
That's a percentage. Here's the formula up here. It's this number divided by this number.
There's only 12 lines.
That doesn't make any sense.
Well,
I
double
didn't realize
check.
That was a percentage. I thought it was supposed to be a rank, which would be.
No, this is the
divided
rank.
by the number of people that you have.
All of this is intermediate formulas and calculations to derive here. This is a combined weighting. So,
Not that part.
Yeah.
Combined weights, I understand that.
okay, so here, this is simply
Divided by 78.
okay, this is the sum of everybody's scores for weights.
Right.
This is that
Okay.
sum divided by this number.
So that's the total sum?
That's the total of everybody's numbers. So this varies depending on how many people responded.
Right.
It shouldn't.
Did you?
It should be 100 times the total number of people that responded. Because that column for each one of us is supposed to sum to 100.
Yeah. I'm not a statistician. This is the methodology that they use and we have used for many years in coming up with the rating. Well, I'm not going to argue that it should be a different way. This is the way we have used it, and it matches what CDOT is doing for that. And if you look up the multi-criteria analysis, it's the formula that you see used statistically. But I can't argue.
I took 2 hours of statistics in graduate school, and I'm a little confused with what you're trying to do here. I'm not accusing you, Ken, but using 100 on the ranks is, I think, the wrong way to get there, and that's 13 is what's the signal to me that it's an error.
Well, this one again, this is the sum of all of your scores. And when you get to here, this is that number
And the
divided
problem is it
by
cannot be divided by
1167.
It should be 100 divided by 100. 78. And it should end up.
It's some kind of a weighted, I hate to use weighted again, but it's a weighted average.
Well, let's look at the end result, because the key thing is that last combined weight. And does that make sense, or do we have a significant issue? I know that I was glancing at the other patterns, and I was seeing what I would expect, which is people brought different perspectives to this exercise. Okay, John.
3 top vote getters are maintenance, safety, cost benefit. That's the way I figured mine. I don't want to change anything. No, I'm serious.
Oh, okay.
That's the 3 important
I hear you.
things: safety, maintenance, of roads, and the cost benefit of the project. What's wrong with that? Shouldn't that be the best ones?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking you.
Well, mine, so can I leave?
Like that, I have a problem.
I guess one of the things that I was shocked by was, and granted, it's my background, but cost benefit, to me, has a huge impact. And so how I weighted cost benefit versus how I weighted safety, because I'm also thinking about the number of people that are impacted with the weight of a fatalities versus, the cost benefit of an entire project where people benefit from that kind of stuff. I weighted that so much heavier than I did safety and then maintenance, and then I was comparing. Because cost benefit is almost like an overall perspective as opposed to, pitting environment against safety. And that kind of stuff. So I guess, that's why I was so shocked when I looked up there, and it's not that I don't think safety is important. For me, it was like the number, it was my number 2 after cost benefit. But I was shocked that safety jumped out ahead of that from a weight standpoint.
I think some of the certain things you just can't cost justify, but they're important to do. And safety is one of those things to me. You may go to the hospital and it's way too damn expensive, but it saves your life. I'm not worried about cost benefit, it saved my life. That's all I'm saying, that's why I think safety is important. That's all. That's why I did mine, that's why you did yours, we're neither right or wrong, that's what you did.
Each of you come with a different perspective based on your own personal experiences or the people that you associate with and represent here and whatever has created your opinion. And I'm not asking for everybody's opinion to agree with the combined weight there. That is an average of all of your opinions, and everybody's opinion is as good as anybody else's.
Once you use these against the projects, I know the last time that I remember doing this, we actually looked how everything shook out with the way it was weighted and ranked and against the projects. And then that's when we saw that specific projects fell in a different priority, and I knew we did some adjusting.
We will score projects, and they will get a raw score for each one of these. And the scoring criteria you saw last month, and the board has approved all of those. So, you know, it was +9 to -9, and all of that discussion. So a project that scored +9 will now get a weighted of the 12. Will be multiplied, I think it's multiplied by 12. So that will increase the score as compared to another project that maybe got a 9 on environment, but is only going to get a weighting of 6.6. So it's where projects that might be tied on a raw score, raw evaluation level, but then because of the priorities that are established, you know, a safety project will rise above an environmental project because of the weighting, assuming that they both had the same score on raw total score.
Once you finish up this evaluation, we'll see all the projects lined up.
Yes. It will come back. The call for projects will start Wednesday the 11th if the board approves it, go to the end of July. Then staff has right now 5 weeks to score all the projects, 200-300 projects. We will take that back to the TAC and we'll say, did we score them right? Did we misread your application? Not read something in your application? So they do have the chance to kind of rebut and convince us that they need 2 points more or something. So we'll go through that kind of a process. And then it will then come through the committees for the recommendation to the board that these are the projects that should be funded. And it'll start with this prioritized list, highest ranked project to the lowest ranked project. And then the table you saw, you know, with the 4 years, there'll be a new table for out to 2045 with dollars available. And we will make a stab at assigning projects to each one of those years and funding categories to get as many projects as possible into the plan. And that will come, those steps will come through the committees.
Aubrey? Could
To the left?
Could you move the microphone over to?
Could you scroll back just a little bit?
So we can see the.
More?
Yeah. Well, I just was looking at major kind of.
Pardon?
I was looking at wide discrepancies in some of them. And not to call you out, Laura, but I just want to make sure that you didn't flip it in terms of number 1 and number 12.
Number 1 and number 12?
Yeah, so like 12 should have been your highest priority.
No, 12 was my highest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go back and
I just asked because
look backwards.
you had one for safety when everyone else had 12.
My
I think.
safety was my number 2.
Scroll back to Laura's real quick. Maybe I looked at it
And
wrong.
that should be 11.
Yeah, my number 1 was benefit cost,
No,
number
look in the
2
other-
was
look in the
safety.
The next one.
So that rank. It should have been 12, 11, right?
Oh, you mean on the ranking then?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. So environment and safety got flipped.
I had to do the same
Yeah.
thing because I couldn't think backwards.
Yeah, you're
Let me,
right.
I don't know how much of a difference it's
I'll
going to
tell
make.
you,
but-
I obviously, from my earlier comments, I have some problems with the
Do
statistical
I even have yours in here?
basis. However,
Yeah, keep scrolling.
okay, take it to the end, please.
Here?
Yes. I believe that the middle of the 5 columns, the middle column is the most reflective of the aggregated weights that we all arrived at. I think the ranking column is meaningless because I don't believe the calculation is developing what we want. And then what the combined weight is a mix of a number that I trust and a number that I don't trust. So I would really like to recommend that we adopt the weight that's indicated as relative weight and use that as the number that is what actually is used in the scoring.
So that would mean cost benefit would be higher than safety,
Some would be higher, some would be lower.
for example.
But it's a matter, it's like decimal point differences. I think there's one where there's a difference of 1 point total.
Yeah, the combined weight is very close to the relative weight.
That's
But no, that's a, I didn't know that we could check our own. So I didn't double check.
Well, you may not.
But now that I look at my sheet,
Did that, because I saw another number 1 down there,
Yeah.
cost benefit, which means
Yeah.
that that's the least important thing. And I can't see the names very well. And so I guess my feeling is that if we look at those, does everybody feel like they had an opportunity, when this is my number 1, this is my number 2, and then when they went back and filled in the columns, reverse it, and put 12, 11, 10, 9, that kind of stuff, because we may be skewing that incorrectly.
Yeah, should,
That's why I say if you were confused over what you were supposed to put for the rank, but you still gave your highest priority the largest amount of weight, we're still good.
If we're going to drop the rank. If they take your recommendation to go with
Well, I'm
relative
just,
weight.
you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
I'm.
Well,
that's
if somebody
that's my
wishes
straw
to-
person out in the middle there.
somebody,
Straw Fox.
you can change your numbers here if you got them wrong. And Laura, do I even have yours in here?
no, you've got mine in there, but you know what? I went 1 to 12. I went the opposite direction.
Okay.
I had a lot of distractions.
Well,
But no, I went.
Nelson, I don't see you.
do you want to change numbers then right now?
Well, you would just have. the-
Ranking,
Oh, there you are.
and see what the impact is.
But they equal if you work.
I mean, I don't know what the impact of one person is going to be,
Mine are good.
but that's why then cost benefit was number 1, is because I thought it was
Most important.
number 1.
Yeah.
I guess I should recorrect this.
Cost benefit was the least important. Pardon? Cost benefit was the least.
Yes, I can see that later.
Okay, so
Okay, so we have some individuals who misinput the numbers for their rank.
Yes, I missed my rank as well.
Okay,
I'm glad I'm not the only.
Okay. Well,
we
as
have time.
soon as you get your numbers, your values renumbered, I
Okay,
will type them in.
you can take mine where rank is starting at 10,
Okay.
under Fifely, right?
Try to get it.
Tom, I've got a chart if you want to use my chart, 'cause I had to do it.
Mine's right.
That's right.
Okay.
Is yours okay?
So Ken, you can change mine in column Q. Yeah, there you go. Oop, you just had
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
Tom.
Tom?
Column Q, I'll just read them off for you in order. 3,
3,
9,
9,
1,
1,
7,
7,
8,
8,
5,
5,
6,
6,
4,
4,
2.
2,
66 there.
4 and then 2, then 10.
where am I?
There, you got it.
10, and safety.
There. Yep, and then 11 and 12.
You dropped it ADA and changed that to just a 6 instead of 66.
And 12. And then the 66 just becomes a 6. Yeah, there you go.
That should be what?
6.
6.
Yeah, just 1 6. There you go.
All right,
So-
who else has a
See if that
change?
made any difference in the.
Now, do you want any change to the weighting, or are you comfortable with that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you meant it to be 1.
You know, with this column?
Now I've got the whole sheet
No,
up.
that's fine.
And I've
No,
got too many
wait,
scribbles.
I'm good on weight in column P, Ken.
Okay.
Yep, thanks.
Any other changes?
Another test?
Clean sheet for Laura.
Yeah, Laura, here.
Yeah, that would be fabulous, thanks. Because I scribbled trying to count backwards and I
Jim?
messed it up again.
You have this, it should be that.
And Jessica, you thought state legislation was up.
Oh, sorry. I want to let you know that the reason there was an error on
You
this is
think that
because
sausage
I did
making
this
way
a long time ago, and everybody
Oh, whoops.
Everybody at the table got a different interpretation of what you were
Oh,
supposed to do
this
for
is-
rank and weight,
Because I
and we
have
had the TAC arguing with us that year,
That was
and
a
the
rough-
staff.
Oh, that's
So,
been
I'm gonna
fun.
tell you my experience doing this.
Julie?
Y'all are brilliant.
Julie?
I wanted to check with Ken on the difference between mobility for auto and freight versus vehicle delay. They are so similar, so I weighted mine so that, they might randomly come up kind of high. but-
The vehicle delay is delay on certain roads only. Those roads that are identified in our congestion management plan, and they are identified, there's 3 types. There's strategic corridors, significant corridors, and national highway system roads. And those were picked for the vehicle delay parameter because they are the larger roads. They're the I-25s, the Pikes Peak, the Research, the Powers, and they carry the largest number of freight vehicles. So it was a slight separation, but otherwise, it's very similar because the mobility for autos is across the board for all roads. But for the economic vitality, we were trying to emphasize the freight on the major corridors of the region.
Would you mind if we went back to the very end of those combined rankings, if anybody else wants to change this yet?
One more, Laura's got it.
Yeah. I'm getting extreme delay in.
I could almost say part of it just by looking at what weights you saw.
Or you just flip them so 3 people have to.
I have too many numbers on here to double check. Like,
You need to add up the 13. That makes it easy, but I'll just go down what you have there.
Well, Laura's refiguring that. Does anybody else have any other questions about
For my weights, adding
let me
up?
make sure I only have.
or changes that you want to make?
It's the same here, numbers-wise.
She was 11.
I do want to comment that one of the things that I have seen done in the past to clarify this as we've done it is once we've got everybody's data in, we've looked at, okay, what rank does that put each thing in? And then, so right now, that weights it this way, is that the weighting you want to have associated with that rank. So do you want the weighting to say that safety gets 13% weighted if it's your number one priority? Or if we've got cost benefit as 12.2%, do we want to say that that actually should be 2 and safety should be 14? That is one of the things that I have seen in this conversation as actually valuable for getting people to pin down. This is the rank that we've got. This is the weight of that item. Is kind of having the group come up with one of these instead of just the average of it. And I don't know if that's helpful to you to see it in that light or to see it differently.
Can you scroll a little bit to the right, because I think we're good. Too long.
Where's my one at?
There you go.
I don't have the one.
So, John, cost-benefit ratio was your lowest ranked. Where'd he go? Apparently he doesn't want to talk about it.
Well, there's 2 twos on ranks. Yeah.
Well, there's 2 twos, but no, there's a 3. Okay. What are we missing? There's no 5. I'm looking at John DeVoe.
This one should be 1.
5.
2.
No, there's
You're
a
right.
5 on his weight. There's not a 5 on his ranking.
He's missing a number. This should be 78.
12.
Well, there's 2 twos and there's a 5 missing, so that accounts for the 3 difference.
Yep.
So one of those should be a 5.
Oh, I see where you're at. I was looking in the middle or something.
Not all these double checks built in, Ken. So you didn't design this? You didn't design this?
No,
Okay.
this is the format that we've used for several years. This particular statistical method is called multi-criteria analysis. CDOT uses the same thing for their weighting of projects, but they call it, it's abbreviated MODA, M-O-D-A, which is multi-something analysis, but it's the same statistical formulas and
Basically
calculation.
fairly simple. When they finally get to the end of it, though, I'm not sure that I agree with how they arrived at the number. They force the rankings into a different mode. Hey, John, we're having a little trouble reading your rankings.
I typed one of your values wrong.
Figure out what's wrong with the computer. Digital. What's that?
You have 2 twos and no 5. You've got a 2 for mobility, non-motorized, and a 2 for infill.
Okay.
You have to have one number, you can't have a number repeated.
You didn't tell me that.
Well, I'm sorry. So you have
What
to,
number am I missing?
you're missing a 5.
Between what and what?
My guess, because of the weight you've given it, that the bottom 2 is a 5. Because you gave it a 5, and the 2 at the top has only gotten 1 point.
Yeah, I did it on purpose. I wanted it to be a 1.
I understand.
Okay.
That's not, I'm sorry.
They're not supposed to be ranking, are they?
In this column, yes. This should be your,
1 through 12. 1.
should be your most important, it should be 12, and
The first one was supposed to be the most important.
whichever one you want to be most important. It doesn't have to be the first one.
What did you want to be most important?
Maintenance.
Okay, so you've got that.
Right.
And so cost benefit is your least important one.
Okay.
You agreed with that. But cost benefit, you gave the greatest weighting to.
I mean the one that says 20.
No.
Right here.
We're looking, okay, you can't see where the top is.
You know how hard it is to read from this
You
end?
don't want to scroll his over so he's right next to the column titles, or the row titles.
I don't want to make it too small, but,
Can you hide a column?
Yeah, hide and through J.
Yeah,
Or just scroll.
just scroll.
Okay, I've got 5 on cost benefit.
No, 5 on
Am
in.
I reading the column right? No.
well, this is the column that we're missing 3 points, so, but you've got 2 2s. We need a 5 in there somewhere.
Okay. Change cost benefit to 5. Is that what you're asking?
It should be infill or mobility. One should be a 5, one should be a 2. Infill's a
Mobility 5, infill 2.
Mobility, 5,
and infill's a 2.
that's a 2. Now we're good.
Okay, you want my numbers? I finally got them? After I fried my brain. I scribbled too much.
So this is ranking,
Yes.
okay?
So in order from top to bottom, it's 10, 3, 5, 8, 4, 6, 7, 11, 1, 2, 9, and 12.
9 and 12, is that right?
All right, did that change anything?
Adds up, right? Any other changes?
That's interesting. It bumped safety up over maintenance.
It was, yeah.
Well, because it should be an average.
Does anybody want to make a motion about what we send forward?
So, right now, just, I'm hoping I have this right, so please correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody else has done this. We have number 1 at safety, number 2 is cost benefit, number 3 is maintenance, number 4 is the mobility of auto and freight, number 5 is vehicle delay, number 6 is transit connectivity and accessibility, number 7 is mobility for transit, number 8 is infill, number 9 is environment, number 10 is modal integration and ADA accessibility. Number 11 is non-motorized connectivity and accessibility. And our final 12 is non-motorized mobility. Does that sound like what you guys want our list of priorities, top to bottom, to be? Does that sound right?
Let me
It's 2 different questions.
put it in here, you can,
So that's.
Does that sound like?
Does that sound like what you're seeing from up there? And if it doesn't, let me know. And if that's something you want to discuss, what should it be? Because that's right now, according to our scores, how we've ranked it. We've said the number 1 priority and thing that should have the heaviest weighting is safety. Is that something we agree with? Okay. Our second one is cost benefit. So I'm seeing a head shake no.
Well, I'm with Don on this one and maybe Sharon too. It's not, but I disagree, so. that doesn't
Yeah, I don't know that we.
which is that paste values? Yeah.
You're still both ranked high.
I'll go with it, please.
Yeah.
Well, remember, the interesting thing about cost benefit to me, coming back to John's example, is if my safety is involved, cost may not really be a factor because the benefit is so important to me personally. But I think we do have a fiscal responsibility in terms of these projects. So again, if we score it out this way, the concern I'm hearing from you is that cost benefit shouldn't be that high.
That's just my personal
I understand, and that's what we're asking you to share. I mean, that's what we're asking you to bring to the table.
So that's total bold, right?
Yeah, so that's highest importance to lowest importance. And the numbers that we have to the right is the weighting. So left is, the words is your ranking, and the right is your weighting. Is that how you want it to be?
So those are only the weighting numbers, they're not the, that's the combined, right?
Right.
Yeah.
This is the values from the first page,
Right.
here.
Yeah, that's the
I just-
combined.
Right.
I just copied them over.
Yep. Okay.
So, does that look right?
John?
It's still a compromise, because we're not all gonna be the same.
Oh, definitely not.
And all that changing we just did, top three stayed the top three. That didn't change.
No.
And the bottom two stayed the bottom two. Okay,
Well-
in the overall scheme of this, top three is what counts, not who's 1, 2, 3. And the bottom, I mean, I think, because that's what happens when you take it tuition.
Jen?
Having gone through this before, it's, once all this gets put in with the projects, and you see what the projects are, and somewhere in your head you go, wow, that's just not compute, man, that shouldn't be all the way at the very bottom, or that shouldn't. That's when, honestly, the real
Yep.
juggling comes around. So I don't know if we need to get real caught up yet. I think this may be a good, because once you apply the criterion and how the staff, and you guys look at these projects and what they're gonna cost, that's gonna be the acid test.
This is more a sense of the committee.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I've heard from, I think, everybody except you, Courtney. Do you have any thoughts?
I think it's a compromise. I mean, it's fine.
Well, let me suggest a little different perspective, not just compromise. There's a lot of literature, social science research literature, that talks about the wisdom of groups, and that even with the variations of the individuals, the group consensus like this tends to be a better predictor and a better kind of guide for how things will turn out. So I really appreciate what everybody has done, but we still don't have a motion as to what we ought to do. And so the floor is open if somebody wants to move that we recommend this be the weighting scheme to go forward to the board for final approval.
I'll make the motion.
Tim O'Donnell?
Make a motion that we accept this as the, I'm trying to think of the right word for this, the methodology that we use for weighting and ranking projects.
I'll second
Okay, we have a motion that's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
one comment.
Yes.
I had to pull myself out of this because I'm much more of a trails person and go, the bulk of the people that are around me and in the groups that I'm a part of are way more considerate about getting to work in a car. So I had to think about distance myself and the people that I'm representing, because after working in a hospital for 30 years and being concerned about ADA and also being a big hiker, if I were to score these for Jenny, it might be a lot different than if I were to score these for most of the people that surround me, so.
Okay, Aubrey.
And to that point, I used your recommendation to sort of pair each one against each other. I think that was really helpful because, at first blush, you might quickly say, well, I really care about these things. I'm going to rank them high. But when you think about them against each one, it gave you a bit more perspective.
Yeah, it's a different way to look at it, yeah. Well, and the other thing that entered my thinking, too, was how many of these things also have some federal mandate associated with them, ADA being one. So when we start talking about how we're going to weight projects, then you layer on at some point, and that's what Ken and his brain trust get to do, is layer on those federal or state mandates that are associated with these projects anyway. We haven't had to take that into account. So I think that's good. Okay. Other comments or discussion? Motion and second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
for participating. Ken, you have your...
I have what I need. Thank you.
Jim? Sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry,
Who
Julie.
seconded?
Tim O'Donnell.
You made the motion, or you seconded?
No, he made the motion.
Oh, you seconded. Okay, thank you, Sharon.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Are you our parliamentarian? Could you come up here with us? All right, so that takes care of that stack of stuff. Information only, the state legislative update.
So-
You're not going to walk up there to the...
I'm not.
Okay.
I'd either be bouncing or wheeling, so it's much easier to just sit. As you guys know, the update you got in your folder is always a little behind the times. We've discussed this before. Since this update was sent out, the Legislative Committee has been asked to take a position on Senate Bill 18196, which would repeal the late vehicle registration fee, which is part of the faster package from a few years back. It would eliminate that over time. The Legislative Committee, upon review, is suggesting a monitor position on that. The bill is unlikely to pass, which is the reason why they didn't want to commit any political capital towards any aspect of it. That position will either be confirmed or changed at the Board of Directors meeting on the 11th. For updates on other things, the House Bill 1119, the Highway Building and Maintenance Funding, died on February 21st. The Senate Bill 1, Transportation Infrastructure Funding, has been subjected to a great number of debates and a great number of amendments and a great number of changes. As amended, the explanation is it allocates a one-time $500 million for transportation in 1819, provides bond authority of $250 million each year beginning in 2019, clarifies that the first $500 million will be directed to the top-tier CDOT projects, leaves the $100 million allocation from Senate Bill 267 intact, and clarifies that the funding is from the general fund and is not sales tax set aside, and notes that if the Denver Metro Chambers Caucus or other interest group proceeds with a ballot issue, the DMCC, if that ballot issue fails, then the General Assembly would still need to go to voters for approval of a bonding measure. So that's where those amendments have changed it. There was some more on the fly today. I will have more information on that soon. If you would particularly like information on that, please contact me and I will share that with you. Updates on other bills. The House Bill 1191, allowing local governments to alter speed limits and the regulations requiring that, did pass and is on its way for the governor's signature. Does anyone have any questions about legislation?
Senate Bill 1815.
The squatter bill is continuing to move forward, but our delegation is expecting some amendments and does not currently know if they have the vote count to pass it. Because of some of the aspects of it and concerns about unintended consequence.
I've heard some commentary on the Senate Bill 1 that they're sort of clearing the decks for Metro Denver to put their sales tax measure on the ballot. And our local chamber and others have not been particularly keen, and the mayor especially, on any sales tax measure that goes above, what, half cent? What is that? What's your take on that?
So working with Lauren Furman, our lobbyist, we've really seen that the Denver Chamber is now creating a giant swath of different ballot initiatives they may put forward, some of them as low as 0.1%, some of them up to 1 cent, some of them at that half cent. And we don't know yet which one they're actually going to run, but we know that they're
going to run something.
Yeah, we know they're going to run something. The Senate Bill 1 discussion is trying to make sure that if they run something and it fails, that we know that the state still has to ask for bond funding. So we don't know what the Denver Chamber is going to do in the end. And that's kind of where we are. We know that they're going to run something, and we know that the pressure from our chamber, our mayor, and our region, as well as the rest of the state outside of the Denver metro area, is pushing them for that half cent in the hopes that they could get something that would be approved outside of their area. Does that answer it, or did I waffle?
Are they petitioning that on the ballot?
So far as I know, yes.
Is that a statutory measure? So doesn't have to do the
Yes.
the bar thing? Just
Yes,
50%?
and they're keeping it on statutory instead of constitutional because of Raise the Bar.
Along those same lines, are you guys concerned at all about the Initiative 66 with the limited growth that may possibly end up on the ballot?
We are not at this point because right now all we're monitoring is state legislation. We're not looking at the election ballot issues and those options, although the legislative committee will most likely this year have to run on a little long to review those items.
That one's ugly, folks.
The whole situation's going to be beautiful this year.
Just real quickly. And I'll save this for member announcements if you want me to, but this Proposition 66 is a initiative coming out of Golden, Colorado, where all the Front Range counties will be limited to 1% of their total housing stock and building permits every year, which is less than half of what we'll actually build this year. And if you think we have an affordability problem for housing now, wait until that passes. And it's just it's an economy killer. So,
What would be the advantage at all of something like that?
not as many cars on the roads, I guess, is the only advantage. It's just it's an anti-growth measure.
Yeah, I can tell that.
A lot of folks think that if people think that we have limited growth, they won't come here, which is ignorant to think that someone would know that you have an anti-growth initiative. That our migration is, 3%, and we'd only be able to build 1% above last year. Not to mention the jobs lost and not being able to build and all the other side effects of that. But
It becomes an affordable housing issue, too.
oh, huge.
It impacts that greatly.
And it
Huge.
My world, where I'm coming from.
Well, Boulder did something, if I recall correctly, in the early 70s in their own location. They
did.
capped their growth or something.
Yeah.
That was back in the Don't Californicate Colorado days.
Yeah, that's a home rule thing. But this is voted on by the entire state, which will affect the 10 Front Range counties.
More information online? Because I haven't-
No, it's just the Supreme Court just waived, the objections. There's been a number of organizations objecting. They're now getting prepared to go get the signatures that they need, and they're also a statutory issue, so that it doesn't meet. They only need to get 150,000 signatures, which they can probably get in Boulder, and they'll be on the ballot. So.
Okay, well, any other comments or questions for Jessica? Okay, we are moved on to general discussion items. I don't know if, we don't have any. So member announcements? Kevin, anything else?
Lots of stuff, but I'm not going to make a member announcement.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and announce that the Tyco Society drum playing people will perform for free at Library 21C at 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, the 15th of April. And it's a 1-hour performance, which means that we will be playing everything we know. You all come. It's good, and because it's free and because it's there at 21C, you can leave after the first one. It's, whatever.
Is that kind of a tax benefit thing that you're doing?
Pardon? It's not a tax benefit. Yes, it is. It's a tax benefit. 21C is whatever. Okay. I don't believe I actually said that. Items for the next CAC meeting. I suspect we'll have a tip amendment.
Sure.
Oh, sure.
He's looking
Is,
forward to
is
it.
there anything else that we need to be doing on the criteria? Is that our last thing until we start seeing the impact that Jen has so adequately described?
Right, we're done with the criteria now. The call for projects, we'll be waiting for projects to show up for 3 months. So the plan itself, we'll be working on text of the other chapters and things like that, but no particular action items to come before the committee. The CDOT selected projects for safe routes to schools. There were 2 selected for our region, and I don't remember which ones they were. I think Manitou got one and somebody else got one, and so they'll be coming forward as a TIP amendment to be added to the TIP.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Just one quick announcement. April this year is the 50th anniversary of the fair housing. So we're celebrating it with free classes on fair housing and the apartment industry, so.
And you're not having anything down in the Broadmoor area, are you?
No,
Okay, just thought I'd check.
no.
I don't know how, I told them I wasn't supposed to be snarky this year. It's not working very well.
Maybe I should, though, now that I think of it. Yeah. I'd probably get arrested or something.
Intensive outreach.
You have a copy of the calendar with the meeting schedule. I would encourage you, if your schedule permits, the PPACG board is a very interesting one-time visit, but it's very interesting to see the dynamic of the people that we are supporting. There's some very outspoken folks. There's a lot of wisdom around that table. And if you have an opportunity, April, May, whatever, I would encourage you, because there's going to be lots of stuff flowing, I think. Steve, this is what we do.
See that. There's a lot of meetings that, not at the highest, certainly not at the lowest.
There you go. There you go. Okay, well, I think we're at a point where we don't have anything else to do. You are welcome to stay for the next 29 minutes, but we are adjourned.
Good meeting. Yeah, good meeting.
Oh, we're done. We're done.
Right, it's based on median income, yeah. Well, the problem that we see as an industry is.
I do too.
Well, I think everybody's kind of reasonable and understands. And I thought Jen's comment, I appreciated that. If she had
You
to
look at the
suspend
price
her
of an
own
apartment today and the price of.
personal priorities.
It's not a huge, right, but it's not a huge job, right? And it's also fine to.
Well, you have to think that people
Modified waiting like
here is not necessarily that important.
it's 12.
Right.
Because there's not a lot of apartments. So the best thing a municipality can do is make it easier to build.
Combined weight.
But then you talk to the neighbors who don't want apartments. And that's what we've got going on down here.
Back when I was a very young person, we did 235 housing and infill housing was 235. And they went around the neighborhoods, bought up the rows of the lots, put the cheapest damn pieces of
Yeah.
no
That doesn't
garages,
benefit
no
anybody.
nothing.
Yeah.
And all it did was lower the property value.
Exactly.
And that was back in the 70s.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
destroyed everything.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the difference today is that millennials and baby boomers who want to retire are willing to pay more for an apartment than they do. Because of all the amenities, right? They get their gym included, they get a swimming pool included, they get an appliance price, but they don't care. Especially, right, but especially when millennials are only planning on being in a job a year or two at a time. They want to be able to move, right? They don't want to be stuck in a 30-year mortgage. Right? And depends on where you go, I guess, right? 3-bedroom, up north, beautiful areas and stuff. $3,500 a month. People will. It's nuts because they want the flexibility. They want to be able to come and go as they please. They don't want to take out their trash. They don't want to mow their grass.
It's like you just read my mind.
And so the demand goes up, and then the city wants us to build them and give them away for free. And it's like, how do you build something for free?
I was in my dentist